friends, welcome or welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and today we're talking all about our ADHD superpower of hyperfocus. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, it's that intense state of prolonged concentration that we can sometimes experience that suddenly makes us ultra productive. It's like being locked into a flow state where the rest of the world disappears and we can easily work on something for hours and enjoy the process. And since there are so many not so pleasant things that we have to deal with when we have ADHD, it's really nice to have an ability that is so genuinely beneficial. Of course, it can come with its own challenges, and it's not something that can be consistently relied on, but when we need to get something done, it can be extremely helpful. Now, unfortunately, it's not something that we can directly control, and it's also much more likely to happen when we are naturally drawn to something. However, I have found that there are many things that we can do to help trigger hyperfocus that really do make a big difference. So that is what we're going to be talking about today, and let's go ahead and jump right into some of the strategies that we can use to help us get into this flow state. Now, the first thing that we can do is to minimize distractions. We need to create a quiet, clutter-free workspace where we can block out external stimuli like noises, notifications, and interruptions, because if any of these things are distracting us, we're never going to be able to get completely absorbed into what we're doing, which is essentially what hyperfocus is. Now, the second thing that can help is to prepare all materials ahead of time. So if we're working on a task or a project, we just want to make sure that we have everything that we need readily available to avoid having to break our focus later on to try to find all of these things. This can include tools, supplies, reference materials, or anything else that's specific to what we're working on. Our goal is to not have to physically move from the area we are working in while we are engaging in this activity. So having everything ready to go really is essential. Now, another thing that I found that can be really helpful is to optimize your environment. As you probably know, aesthetics and atmosphere can be everything to people who are neurodivergent, and it can greatly differ from person to person what we feel is ideal. So we can start to experiment with things like lighting and temperature, and even using tools like noise-canceling headphones and white noise machines to help us try to find our optimal focus. And this is something that has been a huge game changer for me. Whenever I have to work, especially at a computer, I always have my earbuds in and I'm listening to rain sounds. Everybody is different, but that is what I have found really helps to pull me into that flow state. Now, something else that we need to try to remember is to make sure that we've taken care of our basic needs before we get started. If we aren't well rested or hydrated, or we are trying to ask ourselves to focus when we haven't even eaten anything, of course all of these things are just going to completely disrupt our concentration. So we need to prepare for them ahead of time. So for example, if you're a coffee person, make sure you've had your coffee. Make sure when you set up your workstation that you have water and a snack. And if possible, if we know the next day that we're going to need to work on something, just try to get to bed a little bit earlier, because when we take care of our basic needs in this way, it makes it so much easier for us to get into that flow state and get completely absorbed into what we're doing. Now, the next step is to prime your brain. Now, this is something that I've talked about a lot in recent videos because I find it so helpful myself, but research really has shown that certain rituals and practices really can help prepare our brain to focus. And we can do this in very simple ways. We can get in a little bit of exercise and get our body moving. We can listen to some uplifting music, or we can even do a short meditation or yoga session. It's all about finding what helps us transition into that more focused state. Now, another trick that we can use is to start with a small, engaging task. So in other words, instead of just trying to jump straight into the difficult parts of a massive project, start with something that you actually enjoy, even if it means doing things out of order. This can be extremely helpful because it triggers our interest and starts to build momentum and hopefully pulls us into hyperfocus before we get to those tricky parts. It's also extremely helpful if we set a clear goal. This is something that I wish I realized earlier, but we need to define the specific objective of the hyperfocus session to avoid aimless activity and to help us to maintain direction. There's no way we're going to get absorbed into an activity if we don't know what activity we're supposed to be doing. We also want to make sure that if it's a big task, that we've taken the time to break it down, because large, daunting tasks can completely overwhelm us and make hyperfocus impossible. So we want to kind of chop it all up in a way that each completed little task becomes a mini reward that fuels focus for the next one. And lastly, try to embrace novelty. As we all know, new experiences and challenges can stimulate the ADHD brain and can trigger hyperfocus a lot more easily than routine or mundane tasks. Because of this, it can be really helpful to incorporate some kind of new element into the activity, whether that be trying to do things in a different way or in a different order, or setting up little mini challenges for ourselves to keep things fun, anything that works. But we have to remember that novelty really is one of the 5 biggest motivators for people with ADHD. So that is something that we definitely want to try to take advantage of. So those are the tricks that I have found to be the most helpful, but please remember that hyperfocus can be draining. So make sure that you are listening to your body and that you take breaks whenever you need it. Also, if it's just not happening this time, don't stress and don't try to force it. We are complex creatures, and there could just be something that is affecting your concentration at that time, and it doesn't mean that you won't kick into hyperfocus the next time. The trick is really to just keep experimenting so you can figure out what works best for you so that you can reap the benefits of this ADHD superpower. So as always, I truly hope that you found today's video to be helpful and insightful. If you did, please like it, share it, and definitely become a subscriber if you weren't one already. I would love it if you stayed connected. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.